Good evening. Good evening, Councillor Bloxham. I'd like to welcome everyone, members, officers and members of the public to this meeting of the Planning Control Committee. Before the meeting starts, I'd like to invite the committee clerk to explain how proceedings will work and how to undertake a roll call of those attending online to ensure they can hear and be heard.
Thank you, Chair. We don't have anyone attending online today, so we will go into the rules of debate. If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on the microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the Chair will be alerted to your request to speak. When the Chair invites you to speak, your microphone will be made live and will turn red, at which point you can speak. When the public participants are invited to speak, their microphones will be made live by the committee officer. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room and the results will be visible on the YouTube stream. In the event of a tied vote, the Chair will have the casting vote. Are there any questions before we start the meeting?
Thank you. Apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillor Terry Tyler. Are there any further apologies? Item 2, minutes. I propose that we take as read and approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of September 2023 as a true record of proceedings. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Debenham.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any comments on the minutes? Chanel, can we have the vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Notification of other business, there is none. Item 4, Chair's announcements. Recording. In accordance with Council policy, this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be available to view on the Council's mod.gov website or YouTube page. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights set out under Chair's announcements on the agenda. Item 3, to clarify matters for registered speakers. The members of the public have 5 minutes for each group of speakers, supporters or objectors. There's a separate 5-minute time limit allocated to member advocates. A warning will be given at 4 minutes to alert you have 1 minute left. At 5 minutes, you are advised the time allowed has ended and the speaker must cease. Section 4.8.23a. The purpose of clarification. In order to vote on an agenda item at this meeting, a member must be present for the entirety of the debate and consideration of that item. If a member leaves the room at any point of the item, they will not be able to vote. Public participation. Can I confirm the following registered speakers are in attendance? Neil Dodds, Richard Wilson, I've got Richard Wilson, but it's Wilcox. Yes. Councillor Daniel Wright Mason, Martin Wright, Tim Parker, Councillor Chris Lucas, Jeff Armstrong, Susanna Castley, John Bentink, sorry. Is it? Is everybody? So the first item, which is agenda item 6, is 18/01154/OP land north of Highover Farm to Stockpole Road, Highover Way, Hitchin. Sarah Kaspasian to present, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, a verbal update. I've received 4 late representations to the application, all from local residents. I've reviewed them all and they raise no new matters. They've already been considered in both today's committee report and the report from the 6th of July. Moving on to my presentation. The first slide, please. As the location plan, the site's located in the northeast of Hitchin, between the existing urban edge of Hitchin, the railway line and Stopfold Road. The application is for outline planning permission for all matters reserved except for access from Stopfold Road. The application includes proposals for up to 700 homes, 2 form-entry primary school, approximately 500 square metres of retail floor space, open space and play space. And this has not changed since the committee on the 6th of July. Next slide, please. This is the aerial view of the site. The report before you today sets out the additional work undertaken to address the reasons the application was deferred in July. Next slide, please. This is the movement and access parameter plan, again shown previously. It shows the road structure in the site as well as all the vehicular, pedestrian and cycle access points to the site and how it links to the existing urban area. Next slide, please. This is a plan prepared by the applicant's transport consultants. It shows the permitted housing schemes since the TA, the transport assessment, was undertaken in 2018, with all the additional automatic and manual traffic counters taken into account to inform the update to the TA. Next slide, please. This is another plan which shows all the highway improvements and projects identified as a result of the proposed development. These can be broken down into 4 categories, which are coloured on the plan. Appreciate you won't be able to read it, but it sets out and shows visually the scope of the improvements between the site, Hitchin Town and the railway station and Letchworth. Next slide, please. One particular project which the applicants have investigated further is the shuttle system on Walgrove Road as it passes under the railway line. This is an aerial view of the area with the signalised junction of Grove Road, Walgrove Road and Capel Lane. Next slide, please. This is a view of where the bridge goes over Walgrove Road looking east, and the next slide shows a view of the bridge looking west. And the next slide, please. And that's a Google Street View image of the footpath under the bridge at the moment. Next slide, please. This is another plan produced by the applicant in agreement with the Highway Authority to demonstrate the feasibility of the shuttle system. It would widen the footpath to at least 2 metres wide to enable much easier movement of pedestrians, as well as the signalisation of the system in coordination with the junction with Grove Road. The Highway Authority would need to undertake further feasibility and full costing, but estimates show that the cost of this work is well within £3.3 million to be secured for active and sustainable transport measures should this application be approved, whilst leaving a significant portion of that money left for other priorities in the town, which is all set out in my committee report. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions and a suitable Section 106 agreement in line with the heads of terms, all of which are set out in the committee report from the 6th of July, and the conditions were updated as set out in this committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. When I say, are there any questions, that is aimed at the members, the councillors. I'm sorry, it's not for members of the public. So any questions from councillors, please, for Sarah and what she's just been talking about. Councillor Bloxham.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah. That was all good. Did it go into a lot of detail on the main changes that we're looking at tonight, or is that going to come later on in some of this? I mean, all that we really saw was a lot of the improvements to roadways and things like that that were going to happen, which was more of a, we're going to improve Hitchin by doing this, that and the other, rather than the specific queries we came up with at the last meeting was this. This is what we've redone.
So yeah, it's all set out in my committee report, and the cumulative impact from recent housing development is it's a lot more technical, but it's all summarised in my committee report. And so the applicant used manual and automatic traffic counters to update and do like a sense check on the previous TA, traffic assessment, transport assessment, and found that the original assessment was robust. All the figures are in there. It's technical. I can refer to my colleagues if you have any specific questions about that. On the mitigation measures, I didn't want to go into super detail on all the measures. It's all set out in the committee report. This was just one particular project that we looked in more detail on. It's still a project that's identified under Strand 2, Section 106 contributions. So essentially, you know, the developer pays that money at various points during commencement of development. That money goes to the Highway Authority and they put it towards the priorities that they've identified. So that they did more work on this project so that we could identify how feasible it was to make improvements to that railway bridge. We found it's possible, the costs are effective and efficient use of the money. So that's kind of earmarked nicely for that project. And the rest of the money under that financial contribution can go towards the other priorities, which the Highway Authority have looked at in more detail as well. That's set out in the committee report. There's a lot of ongoing work on all of these projects identified for Hitchin. That helps.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Nigel Mason.
Thank you, Chair. I guess following on from Councillor Bloxham to an extent in terms of seeking more details, you referred a lot to the shuttle system under the Walgrove Road bridge. And I've read the report, so I think I know what that means. But given that's a sizable chunk of the money we're talking about and a sizable part of the issue, is someone going to talk us through what that actually does mean and how it works and why it would mitigate some of the issues that were raised before?
Usually that's your highlight.
Yeah, so the shuttle system, obviously Oliver can talk about it in a bit more detail as well, but they've looked at the practicalities of firstly widening the footpath to make it much easier for pedestrians and cyclists, and all that entails to walk, use that footpath, pass each other on the footpath. It means making that roadway, which is currently height restricted, a one-way system. So you'd have signals on either side to control traffic. That would be linked in with the signalised junction with Grove Road. And actually it would kind of formalise an existing arrangement. There's a bit of hesitation with drivers stopping and not being able to pass through because of the height perception. It would also stop bridge strikes as well. So it's good all round actually. The estimate, the cost is about ballpark £500,000 to implement that. So well within the £3.3 million, which enables plenty of other projects to be facilitated with the contributions from Hiver. So yeah, a good kind of first project to kind of earmark to go towards. I think Oliver could talk in more detail about the shuttle system and why it's a kind of good solution that links in with Hiver. If you're able to.
Thanks. I think Sarah's already done a good job in explaining it, to be fair. Obviously, we're going to have the footway will be widened, which will make it much more safer for pedestrians, disabled, elderly, etc. And vehicles will be channeled into the middle of the bridge. So I'm confident that this arrangement can work with the signalised junction to the north. So we've worked with WSP, we've got an indicative design. We have a high degree of confidence that this arrangement can work in practice and it is deliverable.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Who's now? Well, sort of. I still don't quite know what the difference between a shuttle system and having traffic lights is, because what you're describing sounds like having traffic lights.
Yes. Roger?
Yeah, thank you. Just introduce myself. Yeah, I'm Roger Flowerday. I'm from Hertfordshire County Council. I look after local plans and strategic development for the county. So in terms of the shuttle system, it's effectively a system of traffic lights, but it's shuttle because it only allows one direction of traffic at any given time using the same road space. So it allows them through, it would put red, and then it would allow someone else through on the opposite direction. So it's in effect, it's formalizing the existing arrangement where someone has to give way and allow somebody approaching them to go through before they can go through. You can't get two vehicles through at the same time. That's in effect what it's doing. And because it's a shuttle system and because it's effectively another set of traffic signals, we've verified that it won't interfere or cause what we call blocking back into the next signals. So it won't interfere into the operation of those signals as well. So when we say we've checked that, we've kind of gone through our traffic signals team to make sure it would work.
Is that okay? Councillor Nolan.
So it's looking at that particular table with the mitigations, some of them, the potential ones set out. I suppose just an understanding of using the green, orange, red system is set out there. For those that are set in green, just to be clarified, that's not that they are definitely guaranteed to be delivered as part of the schemes. It's just that the most likely, the furthest developed, whereas those in orange are predicated potentially on other source of funding that aren't guaranteed at this stage.
Can I just say to members, we're on page 32.
Yes, it's partly about funding, partly about feasibility, how far the project's progressed. Some other projects they've already had work done on them. So yes, it's all the money will go towards the Highway Authority, and then they will do their job to find the right projects, do the feasibility, and allocate the money towards it, and funding from all different areas as well. So I've tried to kind of give a traffic light kind of system to show what is most realistic and least realistic in practice.
That answer your question, Councillor Nolan? Councillor Levitt.
Thank you. At the moment, that bridge has the height restriction, and the lorries always have to go through the middle of that. The lorries that can get that way, it's not that many lorries can get that way, but those that can have to stick to the middle of the road and do cause issues with oncoming traffic and have done for a long time. Widening the footpath, will that actually have any effect on the height restriction as well by moving it over slightly? Will it mean that the height restriction drops further, or will it be accommodated within an existing width?
Yeah, so there's a dotted line at the moment on the roadway. I don't know if we can go back to the slide and have a look, but the footpath's about a metre or so it can come out another metre, and within that height. So the highest part will be kind of respected. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that one. Yeah, so bring out the footpath up to that dotted line. That's where the highest vehicles can travel.
Any other questions from members? Councillor Peace.
Yeah, I was looking at the technical note that was submitted with the revised data that's got trip generation on it. There are arrivals and departures and two-way trips. What's the total number of trips that we should be looking at here? Do we add them up, or is it? Well, it's in
Which page is that, please, Louise?
It's not in the pack. It's in the.
Although Tim hasn't, the consultant hasn't set out the numbers in an updated report, they all hark back to the transport assessment where a comprehensive trip generation assessment was done. The exercise consultant WSP has done in this instance is simply to show that the trip rates he is using are robust. So all this, so this goes back to a very robust 2017 transport assessment where all the trip generation was set out in detail for every single land use and quantified.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Peace?
I don't know is the short answer, because I'm just looking at the figures. If you, from the officer's report, when you divided the trip number by the number of homes, 700, you got a ratio of about 0.5. If you look at other applications further on that we're going to discuss, the ratio is more like 0.8. So I couldn't understand why there was such a big discrepancy between the numbers.
a ratio of 0.8. The industry standard is about 0.5, and that's replicated across sites all over across the United Kingdom. So I'm afraid I don't know where 0.8 comes from. We're using about 0.5, and the Highway Authority are content that is a robust assessment to be using.
Thank you. Councillor Tyson.
Thank you. I just wanted to get something clear in my mind about the difference between the section 278 works that are referred to, particularly in the applicant's supplementary transport note, and the section 106 contribution. And is that the same work? Because there's an implication in the transport note here that it's different, and that the 3.382 million will go towards something other than the section 278 works. If so, what are the section 278 works?
It's going to take that, Roger.
Well, so we use some very random terms in highways, but you've heard reference to strand 1 and strand 2 contributions. So strand 1 is effectively works that are required to directly mitigate the development, access the development, for example, so the access strategy. So that is typically what we've identified as section 278 works. And section 278 is a clause within the Highways Act that enables us to enter into an agreement to allow a third party, i.e. a developer, to deliver works on our network. So where you see reference to section 278, it's because normally it's because the developer is delivering those. There are aspects that we've identified that are strand 1 mitigation that we are delivering in this particular instance. I think the crossing is one of those things. Where we refer to section 106, that is to cover what we call strand 2. So it's works from which the development will derive a benefit, but they're not solely responsible for them. So it's not reasonable for us to say the developer, you need to pay for all of those works in their entirety. And that's why we secure a contribution towards those works. And in this instance, we've got a number of schemes that we've already identified for this area. And we've actually progressed the development of them quite far already, because we've been working on them for a number of years because of the totality of development that's coming forward.
That answer your question?
I think so. Yes.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you. On SM52, there's the point about the cycle route from Highover Farm to the rail station, schools and the A505. It mentions a new Toucan crossing over Stockwell Road and an extension to the Letchworth Greenway and link to Highfield School. What speed reduction will be put on Stockwell Road? Because you can't have a Toucan crossing on a 60-mile-an-hour road, I'm assuming.
Yes, Councillor, that is correct. As per the plans, the intention is to reduce the speed down to 30 miles an hour. That's a proposal that's been through our speed management group at Herts County Council. It's comprised of senior officers and a police representative. So the intention is that the speed on Stockwell Road in the vicinity of development will be 30 miles an hour, and that will tie into the existing 30 miles an hour further south towards the junction with Cambridge Road.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. To follow that up, when that road then leads into Letchworth, it goes onto a 40-mile-an-hour road. So would it be that then would continue 30 miles an hour? Will you go from a 30 to a 40 back down to a 30?
Are we talking about Stockwell Road, Councillor? Or...
I think you are.
Yes.
So from the development all the way down to the junction with the A505, that will be a 30. Okay, so if that answers the question, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from councillors for Sarah or highways on that? Okay, can we go to register speakers, please? First of all, objectors, Neil Dodds and Richard Wilcox.
Okay.
You have got 5 minutes each, 5 minutes between you. Are you going to share that?
Yes.
Do you want to tell us any times? Or are you just going to do it yourself?
We've got a little stopwatch in front of us.
Okay, lovely. Begin when you're ready, please.
Right. At the planning committee meeting here on the 6th of July, we raised concerns over traffic congestion, air pollution, and safe pedestrian, cyclist and disabled routes into town. And the committee here saw fit to defer any decision until these items had been given further investigation. We were sent a report of the further investigation in late August, Our review findings were sent to the council on the 13th of September. But on the 18th of September, the transport consultants issued an email with details of other traffic survey results, leading to crossed out changes in their traffic flow tables. They concluded that the previous assessment is robust, I quote, but with all the different results, the conclusions do not appear to be at all robust. Clearly, this development of 700 dwellings will result in a large increase in traffic on the surrounding roads, which are already very busy. The estate's residents will have a job accessing the centre of town on foot, leaving them to use their cars. To improve the connectivity of the development with the Hitchin town centre 1.5 miles away, mitigation measures have been proposed, including measures which could be funded up to £3.42 million. These are all very aspirational. They include cycle routes from, and it's been mentioned, from Highover Farm to the rail station, schools and the A505. But it's difficult to see how a cycle lane can be added to the A505 between Walsworth Crossroads and the station roundabout. There just isn't the space. Or another thing, pedestrian cycle improvements to the access to Hitchin station from the east. This is a very expensive item, and I understand it's costing in millions of pounds, 10 to 20 million pounds. None of these measures is actually costed, and no timescales are given. Total cost would certainly exceed 3.42 million. They've been obtained from Hertfordshire County Council's North Central Hertfordshire Growth and Transport Plan and appear to be nowhere near what Hertfordshire County Council term shovel ready. Other potential measures we not funded: Willgrove Road Railway Bridge, which we've heard about, costed about 450,000. We worry that this will result in a logjam due to the nearness of the Wilbury Way Grove Road traffic lights. So we do not believe that these mitigation measures will lead to a sustainable development.
The supplementary transport note, which you're being asked to base your decision on today, has once again been produced by WSP, a company working for the developers. And it's effectively a resubmission of the previous 2017 transport assessment. It's based on the same TRIX data sets, linked to development still under construction and potentially skewed by regions with low car ownership. There is no new evidence-based justification for this. Instead, they simply say NHDC accepted the original assessment when it was first submitted in 2018. If it was good enough then, it's good enough now. But the biggest issues with this note is its insidious assertion that traffic through Cambridge Road is steadily decreasing over time. To make this assertion, which they do repeatedly, they've compared the figure from a survey in 2017 with that of a survey in 2022, which indeed shows a decline, obviously caused by the pandemic. But what they do not highlight is that traffic has been rising steadily 9% year on year and will soon, by their own figures, pass pre-pandemic levels. This assertion that traffic on Cambridge Road is in continuous decline is in fact entirely false, misleading, and the exact opposite of what is happening. You may ask yourself if Hitchin residents can spot these significant flaws in documents prepared by WSP. Why doesn't Herts County Council's Highways Authority? In seeking an answer to that question, we've discovered something. WSP don't just work for the developer, they're also a consultant for Herts County Council's Highways Authority. In fact, they're slightly more than just a consultant. They actually carry out many of its key operations, including reviewing transport assessments relating to proposed housing developments. If you want to understand just how closely they're embedded, consider this. Employees of WSP have Herts Highways email addresses, so when another developer submits a transport assessment for a proposed housing development, the review is carried out by WSP, who reply using their Herts Highway Authority email addresses. In many instances, WSP acts as Herts Highways Authority. We're not suggesting WSP reviewed their own transport assessment, but we believe that a strong conflict of interests exists here. We have no faith in their transport assessment. We demand at least a new transport assessment be carried out by a truly independent company, which will show what Hitchin residents know: the road system is on the edge, unable to sustain another 700 heavily car-dependent homes.
Thank you.
Thank you. As you have mentioned WSP, I'm just going to take the opportunity to ask Councillor Nolan to actually say something.
Yeah, so apologies. I didn't realise until it came up before. I'm an employee at WSP. I didn't realise that we had actually provided the designs for these, because I work in the rail division, so I have very little connection to any of this. So I'm happy to take advice whether or not I can still carry on voting or commenting on this item.
Well, it's disappointing that it's brought up at this late stage, but I would say that in reaching decisions, you have to avoid bias and you have to avoid the perception of bias. I fully understand the point you're making, that you work for a particular division of a very large organization. And I think that, you know, there's a strong argument that it doesn't affect your determination of a highways matter. I would say if you are of the opinion that you are able to objectively assess this application on the basis that you do work for WSP but for a completely different division, then I would see no direct issue with that. Having said that, taking into account that the fact that this application is particularly contested, and taking into account the likelihood that objectors will be crawling over anything and everything to look for reasons for challenge and complaint, then on that basis, I would strongly suggest that you withdraw and negate that as a line of attack and criticism of any decision that's made. Does that satisfy?
Yes.
Thank you.
So just let me clarify. So for openness, it's only when we were listening to your speech you realise that Sean's employment has got any of this to concern this, and he's now left debate and will not be involved in the debate or voting. Okay. Let me go back to your speeches. Can we go to the members for points of clarification about what Neil and Richard have said, please? No? Okay. Can I call upon Member Advocate Councillor Daniel Wright Mason, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking tonight as a ward advocate on behalf of residents in Walsworth. As you've heard, the community has serious concerns about the impact of this development on our highways network. My role tonight is to touch on some additional issues Richard and Neil were unable to cover. Over 1,800 people have signed a petition now opposing the development, with over 800 signing in the last 5 days, many of whom did not know about the proposals and had not been consulted. From what we can ascertain, only a subsection of Hitchin residents were consulted about this latest phase of the process, so only a limited number received letters notifying them about new documents for review. And a number of significant documents produced by Highways and others were released after the public consultation has ended. It's hard not to feel that efforts have been made to keep the community out of this. But the reason why this is such an emotive subject, and so many of Hitchin's residents have spoken up despite this, is because they know the risks this development poses for Hitchin if it goes wrong. Let's concentrate on Hitchin's road system. Residents, in fact anyone who travels on Cambridge Road at peak times, knows just how overloaded our road system is already. Just today, because of a breakdown at the Walsworth crossroads, the system went into gridlock. Traffic was at a standstill for over 1.5 miles along the Cambridge Road, up and beyond the Stopford Road roundabout and into Letchworth. Traffic backed up on the Stopford Road for nearly 0.5 mile. Residents were locked into their driveways, unable to get onto the road. This is why the community is engaged in such a big way. All they have been given are out-of-date reports that tell them that everything is okay on the roads and it will be fine to pour another 700 car-dependent homes into the mix. An independent transport assessment could confirm what we already know, one that is wide enough in scope to consider the impact this would have on the wider road network, and one that takes into account the house building programme that is underway just 2 miles away in Bedfordshire. Their local plan proposes to build 3,000 homes between Olsey and Fairfield. This must be taken into account, and actual traffic surveys of road traffic must be conducted that paint a true picture of what is happening on our roads. As a final point, on September 14th, 2 days after the public consultation ended, a survey of road traffic in Hitchin began in 4 places where automatic traffic counters were laid down. They were on Stotford Road, Cambridge Road, Walgrove Road, and Highdane. The survey lasted 1 week, finishing on September 21st. From the location of the ATCs, it seems only logical to suggest that this was a survey of traffic directly related to the proposed development at Highover Farm, and it would have been authorised by Herts Highways Authority. So my question is, was this related to Highover Farm? And if so, has this been included in the data? And if so, why not? I will end by saying that what is clear about this development proposal, based on what has been said tonight, based on comments that have been made in the planning portal and on social media, is that most people do not feel adequately consulted on this application. Throughout this process, the developer has not seemed willing to engage with local people and allow them to give their contributions and views on shaping the environment in which they live. So what I call for now, no matter what decision is made, is for the developers to try and establish a meaningful relationship with the community of the area that they wish to build on. Because the value of buying a home in Hitchin is just as much linked to the people who live here as it is to its location. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wright Mason. We'll come back to your question about the traffic counting when the officers reply, if that is fine. That's okay with you. Members, have you got any points of clarification for Councillor Wright Mason? No. Can we then progress to the supporters, Mr. Martin Wright and Mr. Tim Parker? And you're going to divide the time between you, yes?
Thank you.
Begin when you're ready.
Chairman, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. The application recommended for approval back in July is again recommended for approval tonight. You requested further work to review and update the transport assessment and to consider the cumulative impact of this scheme alongside the other allocated developments on local roads. This has been done, and we have also provided additional detail on the mitigation options available. Working with county highways, we have used the most recent highway traffic flow data provided by the County Council and have compared this with the figures in the 2018 transport assessment. This confirms that the conclusions of this TA and the subsequent December 19 TA addendum remain robust and fit for purpose. Forecasted traffic flows are now lower than presented at that time, so the TA data represents a worst case scenario, and the traffic impact predicted from this development is deemed low and not severe in the context of NPPF guidance. We reviewed the traffic impact together with other local plan allocations, including the North Herts College site. The residual cumulative traffic impact again is deemed low and not severe. We've checked the trip generation against the industry standard TRIX database for this development. Again, this is considered by your officers to be acceptable. Working closely with the County Council, a number of potential mitigation schemes have been costed, all involving improvements to active travel and pedestrian cycle connectivity around Hitchin, and are detailed in the committee report. The precise schemes to be delivered remain at the discretion of the County Council, but these can be funded from the proposed Strand 2 Section 106 contributions. The development proposals and transport impact work accord with NPPF, local plan policies SP6 and T1, and developer contributions SPD. We acknowledge that Hitchin, like other towns, has existing highway and mobility challenges. As a responsible developer, we are committed to the delivery of mitigation measures that will help improve the existing situation. With regards to wider strategic Section 106 contributions, this development will deliver circa £28 million, in addition to providing 40% affordable housing, 13% improvement to biodiversity net gain, and a 2-form entry primary school. The highways contribution is some 4.7 million of this total, and 3.3 of this goes to the county council, as we heard, for highway improvement projects. Paul Tucker, KC, our appointed council on this project, has advised that we cannot secure approval tonight. We must consider lodging an appeal. He's also advised that if PIN supports an appeal, they may strike out some of these proposed Section 106 contributions, and in particular the Strand 2 highway contributions. Therefore, I would like to stress our firm preference is to deliver the requested and agreed Section 106 improvements and package following a positive decision this evening. Highover Farm is a major contributor to the council's 5-year land housing supply. Without this development, there is considerable risk of planning by appeal, not through planned development. In summary, I would like to emphasise this application is wholly in accordance with the recently approved local plan adoption and MPPF, is allocated and is 100% policy compliant. It has comprehensively resolved and responded to all technical consultation and policy requirements, such that there is no objection from statutory consultees, and in particular the Highway Authority with regards to traffic impact and proposed mitigation. And finally, it provides a substantial package of Section 106 monies for infrastructure, community facilities, and the provision of much needed affordable housing. I would just like to introduce my colleague Tim Parker due to his considerable involvement in this project.
Good evening. My name is Tim Parker. I'm an Associate Director at WSP with over 20 years experience in transport and highways. I've overseen the transport matters in relation to this scheme on behalf of Barrett David Wilson Homes. And I've been working with North Herts District Council and Hertfordshire County Council since 2017 and have been produced the transport assessments, the transport assessment addendum, and the transport technical notes. I'm here this evening to respond to any queries that may be raised together with Hertfordshire County Council. Thank you.
Just to conclude, members asked us to undertake additional work to justify this site not contributing to worsening traffic around Hitchin. We have demonstrated this. And I just want to answer some of the questions raised earlier, that we are absolutely committed to public consultation. We're already sort of gearing up for, depending on tonight, future work with the design code, the details of the scheme. We would like to hold that event publicly, and Barrett are very, very committed to building.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Can I just say to members, you cannot take into account in making your decision whether there be an appeal or not, or whether that would result in changes in conditions, etc. So please discount them. Can I go to Councillor Daniel Allen, please?
While I agree, definitely we can't consider that. Just want to say, threatening us is not a great way to make friends during a statement. It's a direct threat.
Yeah, thank you. But can I have any points of clarification from members? No. Can I then invite the officer and highways to respond to issues that are being raised?
Thank you. I will ask Oliver to assist in a moment, but I did just want to mention that one of the objectors mentioned that about all the priorities for the town for transport. This is a priorities identified in the growth plan for the county. So they're all the kind of issues for the town and projects that will help address that. And it's not responsibility of this development alone to solve all of those problems and deliver all those projects. So I just wanted to raise that. Obviously, those projects depend on feasibility and scope and funding, and that's the Highway Authority to manage. And that's why we do it how we do it, where we collect 3.3 million and that goes to the Highway Authority. So I just wanted to confirm that approach. And I wanted to ask Oliver to explain the email that was received on the 18th of September, I think it was, about the discrepancies and corrections from WSP. and also mention the increase in traffic levels that was referred to.
Yes, so thank you, Sarah. So following the initial note prepared by WSP, the Highway Authority, myself, asked for some additional sites to be taken into account in the WSP analysis of traffic flows. WSP did that work and it revealed that on balance, the traffic flows are lower than in 2017. Going on the evidence we have in front of us, these are looking at the figures. So they are robust. They don't lie. The figures are showing on balance that flows are lower on all of the sites. With respect to the discrepancy, that was corrected by WSP in their follow-up note, and I'm grateful for them to doing that. It was unfortunate that it was wrong in the first place, but it has been corrected, and it still shows that the data that we're using from 2017 is in fact robust. To come back to Councillor Wright-Mason's point about the traffic survey counters, I'm not aware of why these have been set up, but I'm happy to write to him and I'll find out an answer for him what they're doing.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, I think just to provide some wider context, we obviously monitored traffic across the whole of the county during the pandemic, and we only stopped monitoring sort of the end of 2022. And the flows across the county broadly are all 5% lower than they were pre-pandemic levels. So it's not unusual for us to see that traffic levels have reduced. We have seen slight nuances where the peaks are slightly lower than they were, but they've spread a little bit. But overall, traffic volumes are down roughly about 5% across our network.
Have you finished? Okay, so Sam, have you got anything to add? No? So shall we go to can we have a proposer? Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Continue.
I'm sure I read that traffic survey was done in August. Now I appreciate that as partly just chronological because following on from the last planning meeting, which was in July, but obviously there are obvious implications of August. I don't know. I guess my question is, would you expect a traffic survey taken in August to be markedly different from one in September or October or April?
I have comments in the back because it means we can't concentrate. Would you like to answer? Maybe I can't concentrate.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm not aware of the count that was done in August. The survey. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not sure which one that is, or I just can't recall there having been one in August. Yeah, you are right. That is not a neutral month, but the surveys I've seen that we've compared against and using the best available data, that they are all they've all been done in months that are representative and neutral. So yeah, August is not a neutral month, but but all the surveys that I've seen have been in comparable months to what WSP did back in 2017. So I must reiterate my point that we, as a highway authority, consider that the traffic flows are from 2017 are robust.
Thank you. Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chair. You asked for a proposal, but before we do, could I request that we have a little bit of debate first, because there's a few issues I think that might come up before somebody wants to put an. Right, thank you, Chair. In that case, I'll kick off. So winding back the clock a little bit to the last time we had the meeting. As far as the overall development was concerned, there was no great concerns over development. This is a site in a local plan. The number of houses complies with it. Everything else went along with it. We'd welcome that. We need that sort of house in North Herts. There was no particular problems with that. Where the issue came was that it wasn't until fairly well into the debate that we realised that 2/3 of the traffic was going on to Stopfold Road, but 1/3 was going Woolgrove Road. And that part, although the Stopfold Road bit had been quite well comprehensively covered in the surveys, the Woolgrove Road bit hadn't. And I raised the point about the bridge and everything, and hence the reason we ended up deferring it because of this. So that's where we are tonight. Has this Woolgrove Road issue been addressed fully? Now, before I go on and mention that, I would like to say one little thing that came out from what one of the contributions from speakers said there, and was WSP working for the developer and being part developer, etc. That is not at all uncommon. In fact, that is the norm. A developer will always employ a consultant, always employ a firm to do something. There are very, very rarely an independent one, and it would have to be the council that paid for that, or somebody like that would have to pay for it, or the objectors would have to pay for it, which has been done in the past. So the situation of WSP working for them is entirely normal. The fact that they use Hertfordshire HCC email addresses is entirely normal. So there's nothing underhand or devious in that. It's a normal procedure. I just thought we needed to make that quite clear. Coming back to, has it been addressed properly? They've done everything we asked them to do. The data says that it's acceptable. I can't see any reason now. I still doubt the results. I still think it's going to have more impact than it has. But we have to go on. We've asked for this information. Information's being received, it's been given to us. We have to accept what we are given in front of us. So that's where I am at the moment, Chair. I think they've done everything we asked for last time.
Thank you. That's helpful. Do you want to answer your question about Woolgrove Road?
Yeah, my questions about what they're going to do in Woolgrove Road, which wasn't mentioned last time, has been comprehensively covered.
Thank you. So we're at the point, can we have a proposer, please? Councillor Levitt.
To move it on, I'm going to propose we accept the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Daniel Allen.
Because I can see no legal reason not to, I will second it.
Thank you. Can we go to debate? Councillor Bloxham.
Thank you. Yes, they have done what we asked for, but I just don't see a great difference. And I think we've heard a lot about the data and the data being proved, and I have no question of that. There's times in work that I do where you take consultants' advice on this. However, I'm a bit more of a realist, and knowing that area and how not even just at the Cambridge Road and places like that, but the congestion that is there and the impact of the 700 more houses, despite the fact that we did give it the go-ahead in the plan to have this area highlighted as somewhere to develop. I just see it being a real problem. And for that reason alone, I find it very, very difficult to support this one.
Thank you. Councillor Debenham.
Yeah, this might be a stupid point, I don't know, but is it possible that the levels are lower because there's more congestion, so there's less cars going through in that period of time?
There's thought, and of course we've got lots of policies trying to get people not to use their cars. Councillor Allen.
Just want to take a moment to say why I've seconded it. We, as the planning authority, have to have legal reasons to say no to things. I know how bad that traffic is. I drive it all the time. And I have to drive it because I have less able people in my family and I have to take them in a vehicle. It is not the best option. However, legally, as the planning group, we have to follow what is put out, and there is no legal reason to say no.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
I find myself simultaneously in agreement with Councillor Bloxham and Councillor Allen. Like Councillor Bloxham, I sort of see a reality gap between the stats we have in front of us and the data we're given to act on, and what I see every time I drive to this council building when I drive along Cambridge Road and all the rest of it. And I have great problems not imagining it's a problem. However, we have to vote on the data in front of us, and the data in front of us says otherwise. And I'm aware of what our legal obligation is, so I am very torn.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson.
Likewise, I'm torn on this as well because excuse me.
Not interrupt. Carry on.
I don't feel qualified to dispute the data that we've been presented with, or the highways officers' interpretation and analysis of that. So with the mitigation measures that have been proposed, with further ones to be firmed up in more detail, I think, then I would have to also support this application, as it's an application site in the local plan, and we need the houses. I would like to say one thing also on mitigation, that we haven't talked about public transport enough, in my opinion, and that I know that there is a plan to extend the bus service into the development if it's built. But what I'd like is some sort of commitment to a meaningful bus service that runs, for example, every 15 minutes and makes a proper useful contribution to moving people from the development into the town and back, not just at peak periods either.
I must admit, when I read the report, I thought I'd got that information about the buses. And yes, please.
So one of the Strand 1 financial contributions will comprise £875,000 to be index linked towards the bus diversion of number 81, which equates to 5 years worth of that payment. And that will be number 81 going through the site. That will be diverted completely. So that will be the only type of vehicle that will be able to go through the site along the Spine Road, and that will be controlled with a bus gate in the middle. And that will go to the town, as it does at the moment, rather than turning around at the top of High Dane, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Peace.
This is a really hard decision because we do need these houses, and I think it boils down to whether you accept the trip figures that we've been given, which don't really include trips for the primary school other than for 29 primary school pupils. And I'm not sure that's reflective of the number of pupils that will come into that site from other areas in Hitchin, because many of the other schools are oversubscribed. And I agree with Councillor Tyson that I don't think we've seen anything like enough focus on public transport, because I don't believe the 81 goes to the station in Hitchin. Does it? Okay.
Any more comments on the debate? Shall we go to the vote? So the proposal is that we accept the application for item 6.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. I'm going to continue on to item 7, and then there'll be a break after item 7 because item 6 and item 7 go very much together. Item 7 is 22/00303 FP land for footpath between Greenway and Stockpole Road, Hitchin. Sarah Kaspasian to present, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have no update on this one, so we'll go straight to the first slide. Not a very clear plan, but this is the site's location plan with the red line shown. It's roughly the green line. Don't know if you can see it any better than I can. The middle green line, through the middle there, the red line. It's located to the northeast of Hitchin, between Hitchin and Letchworth, and Stotfold Road, and the Greenway around the edge of Letchworth. The site is entirely within the Greenbelt, and the proposed development overall is not considered to be inappropriate development in accordance with the North Herts local plan and the NPPF. Next slide, please. It's an aerial view of the site, and the application before you is for full planning permission for an extension to the foot and cycle path known as the Greenway. You can see on this aerial map the red line, which is the proposed location of the Greenway. Oh, it's not on there. Oh no. So above Hitchin Garden Centre, it's the next hedgerow up, and the footpath will be, yeah, that's the one. That's it, Mouse. Thank you. The footpath will be along that hedgerow there on the north side. There will also be a new Toucan crossing south of the new roundabout for Highover Farm, and linking with Highover Farm development. The application includes full details of the width and structure of the path, which would match the existing path of the Greenway. The width would be 3 metres wide, wider than the existing in most places. Next slide, please. This is a view of the route of the existing Greenway around Letchworth. Next slide, please. This photo is taken on the other side of the hedgerow along Stotfold Road. So the footpath would be located on the left side of this hedge. The main consultee of the application was the Highway Authority, who raised no objection to the proposals and noted its contribution towards active and sustainable transport to assist with the development of Highover Farm. Next slide, please. This view is taken from the other end of the hedge that we just saw. While I was standing on the Greenway, here the path would be on the right-hand side of the hedgerow. There would be no changes to the hedgerow as a result of the proposals. The physical work is principally to the ground, within 5 metres of the hedgerow. It has been in arable rotation, so we don't anticipate any adverse environmental problems as a result of that development. Next slide, please. This is a view of the Greenway. It gives you a good idea of what the extension would look like, except that this, the path subject of the application would be 3 metres wide, whereas this is maybe 1.5 metres wide. Next slide, please. And this plan shows the detail of the path, how it would link up to Stotfold Road, and its detailed construction. This comprises hardcore comparable to the existing Greenway. And it's worth noting that this would be funded by the financial contribution in Strand 1 from Highover Farm. It equates to about £235,000, be paid by the developer to the Highway Authority, and they would implement this planning permission. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions from members? No. Can I have a propose, please? Councillor Debenham?
Yeah, I'd like to propose that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Levitt?
Yeah, happy to second, Chair. I'm a regular user of the Greenway, and I do actually use this little bit occasionally on a mobility scooter, oddly enough, which I might be in trouble here because it's sort of a technically motorised transport, but I do use that bit, and any improvement to it would be much welcomed.
Thank you. Shall we go to debate? No debate. Shall we go to the vote then, please, Chanel?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. I'm going to pause there. What time is it? For 5 minutes. So those of you who don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting may leave. Those of you who are can stretch your legs, and we can get Councillor Nolan back into the room. Thank you. Welcome back. Item 8, 22/03092/FP land to the east of Foxholes and Gainsford House, and on the west side of Crow Furlong, Hitchin.
This one's up next, Chair. On advice from the legal officer, I will have to recuse myself on this issue. I have spoken publicly and fairly vociferously on this subject in the past, so I shall, like my colleague, take a walk. Could have stayed out if I'd realised.
You had to come to say it. Sarah Kaspasian to present.
Thank you, Chair. Good. No updates, so we'll just go straight to the presentation and the first slide. So this is the red line site plan, which you will note doesn't include the woodland to the south, which remains in the green belt, so to be clear on that. The area within the red line was removed from the green belt in the local plan, and the proposed development is limited to the area shown here within the red line. Next slide, please. A bit more close up. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view with the site highlighted with the red line. The application before you is for full planning permission for residential development of 47 units with car parking, open space, landscaping, and a new access off Grays Lane. Next slide, please. This is a photo of the northeast corner of the site, taken from the top of Grays Lane, the existing gated access. Crow Furlong is to the left of the photo and the bridleway to the right, which shows the boundary with the site allocation reference HT5. Next slide, please. This is a view within the site looking from the gated access and looking southwest. According to the proposed site layout, there would be an attenuation pond for drainage to the right of the photo, and the main access road would run into the site along the kind of right-hand side. Next slide, please. This is taken in the summer, another photo from the southwest corner of the site looking east. The topography is such that the northeast and southwest corners are lower, with a gentle ridge running through the site in a northwest to southeast direction, which I think you can see from that photo. The closest tree is to be removed in that photo, and with a larger further tree to be retained and incorporated into the new play area. And that tree is the one which is part of a tree preservation order. Next slide, please. Another photo with the tree to be retained on the far left. They're looking towards where the new access to the site will be in the far distance in that corner. The photo is taken from roughly the position where the building containing 4 flats would be located. Next slide, please. This photo shows part of the western boundary to the site with the existing landscaping, trees and scrub, which is to be retained and enhanced to strengthen the boundary with the green belt. Next slide, please. This is the proposed site plan with the main spine road and a couple of spurs off, incorporating affordable housing, ecological buffers, play area, parking, drainage and landscaping. Next slide, please. This is another photo of the access from the end of Grays Lane at the juncture with Lucas Lane, Crow Furlong and the Bridleway. Next slide, please. This is a more close-up picture of the entrance to the Bridleway with the site on the left and HD5 on the application site on the left and HD5 on the right. The new access will be slightly further up along the left-hand side and the gated access closed, and the Bridleway retained thereafter. Next slide, please. This is a view of the site boundary from Crow Furlong. It comprises the eastern boundary of the site with residential properties to the right of that picture. Next slide, please. This is the access detail for the site, which crosses over with the approved application for site reference HT5, which was approved, I think, in September. Next slide, please. This is a view of part of the site from along the Bridleway, taken in January. It shows the longer landscape view with the property headlands, the kind of yellow coloured property to the left. There'll be bolstered planting along this boundary of HD6, together with a 12-metre ecological buffer, which will provide a good set back of built development in the landscape. There will be 4 houses visible along this boundary, which will limit the impact. Next slide, please. This is another site plan showing the house types proposed across the site. There will be about a dozen house types in total, some of which are slight variations on other types. Next slide, please. And some examples of the house types, material palette and architectural features which are appropriate in this edge of town semi-rural setting. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions and a suitable Section 106 agreement in line with the heads of terms, all of which are set out in the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions from members for Sarah? Councillor Tyson.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I was just going to ask about one thing, which was the in the applicant sustainability report. I read and was delighted to see at last a pledge to fit solar panels to the houses, should they be built, and also air source heat pumps, and then deflated to read in the next line that this might actually be not such a firm pledge as it appeared, and that technology might take over. But I just wanted to be quite sure that, and you picked up on this in your report at section 7.1, where you said that, also that the climate change measures might be subject to review and therefore not be implemented as described. So I was just wondering if I ought to be listening to the sceptical voice within me about whether this is just a way of getting out of a commitment, or whether there is a genuine sort of improvement in the offing at some point.
Yeah, so we have assessed it in section 7 of the committee report, and they've proposed quite a few measures, including solar panels, very common, air source heat pumps. We're just kind of aware that technology moves quite quickly, and standards move quite quickly, building regulations being one particular one. So we note the submitted energy and sustainability statement, but require in condition number 25, an updated one, to just meet the needs of the point in time where that when the development's more likely to come forward. Technology changes, and it should kind of enhance what's already been submitted, if anything. Okay.
Any other questions, clarification? Councillor Peace.
The Hertfordshire Ecology report was talking about not being able to determine without a biodiversity net gain plan. Have we got that?
So they submitted their biodiversity net gain metric, which demonstrated a net gain, which is policy compliant. I think Herts Ecology wanted to see a management plan as well, to see like the detail of how that will be delivered. So that's part of a condition. It used to be called an environmental management plan, but I think it's now BNG management plan. And that will actually be adopted by the council as part of the proposals as well. So when they adopt the green space, they'll adopt the responsibilities of BNG as well. So yeah, secured by condition, all of that detail.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Allen.
Sorry, just looking through, I see a number of comments throughout about lighting, low-level lighting from Hitchin, one of the Hitchin groups, and low-level lighting recommended by one of the ecology groups. Both of them asking for
an amendment with the lighting. Is that a condition rather on lighting? Is that something that's in the conditions at the moment, or something I need to look at possibly suggesting later? I can't see it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not there, but I can't see it.
Just give Sarah and Sam a couple of minutes.
Sorry about that delay. We've had a look. I can see no condition that would apply to low-level lighting. Typically, you would see that condition where there's a potential impact on bat roost in sort of transport corridors. So if you feel that is a condition that is required, I'm sure we could draft a condition, probably possibly not immediately, but bring it back if required, just to have a standard condition about an assessment of if there is an impact on a bat route or ecology routes that are important, and then have a lighting strategy that mitigates that potential impact.
Councillor Allen, is that okay? Should we have that one? Any other speakers? So then can we go to registered speakers? Objector Neil Dodds, please.
Right, just be a second.
Okay.
Right, hello. Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of Hitchin Forum and Save Hitchin Greenbelt, which has 5,700 supporters and this includes contributions from Phil Davis and Justin Richards. We made detailed criticisms, that's Hitchin Forum, of both the transport assessment and the air quality report back in January. Only recently, the air quality report was revised and reissued, while the apparent deficiency in the transport assessment still remains. And this includes what appears to be a simple arithmetical error in table 5.7, which has the effect of underestimating the volume of traffic predicted to enter the intersection of Grays Lane with Upper Townhouse Street in the evening rush hour. According to our calculations, traffic from this development, together with that from neighbouring site HT5, results in increases in traffic at the bottom of Grays Lane of 40% in the morning rush hour and 53% in the evening rush hour. And these large increases will exacerbate congestion at a location and time where pedestrians, including school children, have to cross the bottom of Grace Lane. We note that Herts County Council Highways think this extra queuing traffic can be mitigated with S106 contributions. Their proposals involve traffic lights at the A505, A602 and Purton Road roundabouts, improvements to pedestrian crossings and additional bus stops. We find it difficult to see how the traffic lights will produce anything but a logjam in Upper Townhouse Street and beyond. We understand that traffic lights cost in the order of £200,000 per set, while a sustainable transport contribution sought is £328.22 to put towards all these improvements. We're also concerned about the impact on air quality from these additional 40% and 53% cars queuing at the foot of Grays Lane in the morning and evening. The junction is on the edge of Hitchin's second air quality management area, one of only two in North Herts. The very closely located monitoring capsule outside 58 Upper Townhouse Street has readings for recent years already close to and in excess of the air quality objectives for annual mean nitrogen dioxide concentration. The predicted increase due to the additional cars is categorised in the air quality assessment, which accompanies this submission, as negligible and not significant, but tell that to the nearby residents. We do not understand the revision in the sum calculated to mitigate the air pollution impact. It was 19,000. No, it is now £19,011 rather than the previous 44,693.42, when there doesn't appear to have been a change in NHDC's guidance on this matter. With all these outstanding queries and concerns, surely this application needs to be deferred so that any decision is based on clear and complete and correct information. Now, turning to the site itself, we believe that the development contravenes the NHDC local plan, which states no development site should overlook the Chilterns or AONB. This site is on the ridge overlooking the Chilterns. Changing the rules or leaving space to the boundary edge or planting will not change or alter this fact. The planning system statement for this development states that it involves the loss of meadowland, 10 single trees, 1 group of trees, and partial clearance of 2 hedgerows. Apart from visual amenity and the loss of this lovely field, this will result in disturbance and loss of multiple wildlife habitats.
1 minute left.
If the development goes ahead, especially for protected species such as badgers and bats. The biodiversity claim for this development of 10% net gain we understand to be incorrect. The classification of the grassland used in the metric calculation is wrong because the NPPF, paragraph 191, states that where there is evidence of neglect or of damage to the site, the deteriorated asset should not be taken into account in any decision. And finally, if despite these compelling objections, the development is to proceed, we have asked for low-level lighting, street lighting, because of overlooking the AONB, being on the ridge, overlooking it, and also because of harm to nearby wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Any point of clarification from members? Councillor Tyson.
Thanks, Neil. Could you mentioned about the increase in traffic numbers, and you talked about percentages. I think you said 40 and 53% for the morning and evening figures. Have you got the actual numbers rather than just percentages for those counts?
With me, but I can provide them.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing, do you have a reference from the local plan about your quote about sites not overlooking the Chilterns and area? Oh, we got it here. Thank you. It's all right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, clarification? Councillor Levitt.
Good evening. Sorry, try and turn around to talk. You don't like talking with my back to you. You mentioned about the wildlife and that you should take into the NPPF says you should not take into account the degraded state of the site. However, doesn't the fact that it's been left to run wild actually encourage wildlife and work in its favour?
Could you put your microphone on, please, Neil?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just asking if Phil Davis could, from Save Hitchin Greenbelt, who provided that, if he could answer that question.
Thank you. It's not allowed. Thank you. Did you want to add anything to that, Neil? No.
No, well, I'm sorry that I don't have those figures to hand. If I find them, I'll say. Please, thank you.
Any other questions, clarification? Have you found the figures?
Some numbers for car movement. Yeah, so what are we wanting? Number of cars generated from HD6, HD5, 46 arrive, depart, arrive 10, that sort of thing. Transport assessment, number of car trips generated. So this is 46 in the what is that? 46 and 31, 46. Oh yeah.
Leave it,
Oh,
we'll
sorry.
leave it. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we'll leave it there, Neil. Okay, can we go on to the member applicant, please, Councillor Chris Lucas?
Thank you, Chair. I'm objecting to this application as ward advocate on highways grounds, but I could have objected on numerous grounds as identified by Neil: biodiversity or lack thereof, transport, and of course air pollution. But it's highways ground in which is going to make up the main reason why I'm objecting to this application. One of the material considerations for this application is involved traffic volume, noise, highway safety, and air quality. Highways initially had objections and recommended refusal. Highways continue to acknowledge that there are issues of congestion, as their own capacity assessment indicates that the junction, that is Purton Road, Offley Road, Ratton Road West and Grays Lane, operates over capacity, particularly during rush hours, which are themselves extending beyond the norm. National Planning Policy Framework paragraph 111 states that development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety or the residual cumulative impacts on the road network would be severe. And that's why this application should be refused. The first report from Herts Highways recommended refusal, and it states, given the nature of the access for multiple routes and user groups intersecting at this point, the Highway Authority feels that a new stage 1 safety audit should be commissioned to assess the risks related to the proposed access arrangements. This has not been done because in the second report, it does not adequately address this issue. I can't see any evidence of a stage 1 road safety audit commissioned or a Herts rights of way statutory consultee request or response. There seems to be little acknowledgement of the obvious issues about establishing a road junction on the bridleway with horse riders, dog walkers, runners and cyclists in the mix. A road junction at the confluence of a bridleway and an unadopted road does not demonstrate how access to the development will prioritise pedestrians, cyclists and horse riders over motorised vehicles in line with the user hierarchy that forms a key part of Hertfordshire's 4th local transport plan, as well as paragraph 112 of the NPPF. Little consideration has been given to how to mitigate adverse cumulative impacts on the area. Orton Head Way, Gaping Lane, Bedford Street, Lavender Way, which already suffer from lack of off-street parking, difficult access for delivery and emergency vehicles, as well as those attempting to shortcut to avoid the already at capacity roundabout at the A600, A505 and A602 by Hitchin Library. It is disingenuous to say that this development will have little detrimental effect. How many more developments are we going to see applications for tightly constrained areas before we take into account the impacts of quality of life for our residents? Highways need to take a more holistic overview of how these individual applications added up result in an unacceptable lowering of environmental standards for residents. At the very least, insist on greater detail on traffic impacts. Why County Councillor Keith Hoskins and I are so adamant that this should not go on is because is summed up by when he spoke to a highways officer based in North London, which appeared to be that he had Google Earth on his laptop, so trying to make a judgment on the impacts of the transport and highways issues. It would be erroneous to suggest that there is not a severe impact on local highway networks. Committee, once again, you have before you a planning application that takes no account of the increasingly negative cumulative impact on local services, modes of transport, or highways congestion with all that entails for residents' quality of life, not to mention the impacts of on local residents, on air quality, the loss of biodiversity, which I have to say the answer that was given before in answer to Councillor Peace's question was, I have to say, so underwhelming and so uninformative that it was due something straight out of Yes Minister. So I urge ministers, I urge members to vote against this application, or at the very least defer it pending a proper stage 1 safety audit as per written in the first report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Are there any points of clarification from members for Councillor Lucas? He's got the figures. Yes. Carry on, Neil.
This is at the junction of Upper Townhouse Street and Grays Lane. Existing as measured on the 17th of January 2019. In the morning, 89. And this is an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, 62. And with the extra ones, in the morning would be 36, and in the evening would be 32. So 36 over 89 is 40%, and 32 over 62 is 52%.
Thank you. Councillor Daniel Allen.
I know we've gone out of kilter. Am I allowed to ask a question on those numbers? Thank you, Chair. Thank you. May I ask, in a couple of parts, who was it that took those numbers? What day of the week the numbers were taken on, please?
17th of January 2019. I think that's what it says. It's my writing. I can't read my writing. Thursday. Yeah, that was when the traffic survey. It was a manual traffic survey. I don't know who did it. Oh yes, I do. It wasn't. Something like Martin. Something Associates. That's it there. I'm
See if we find it, okay? Councillor Allen, did you finish your question?
Yeah, basically, I just wanted to know if this was a member of the public randomly taking the notes, or if this was done by an official company. And it's now I can tell that you've done it by an official company. That's absolutely fine. I don't need the full information. Thank you.
Thank you. So Neil, you can start looking now because Councillor Allen is satisfied. Any other questions, clarification for Councillor Lucas? I think we're on, aren't we? No. Can I then come to the supporters? Mr. Jeff Armstrong, who is the applicant's representative. When you're ready, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. The committee report is very comprehensive, so I wasn't proposing to cover that in any detail, but I'd like to just highlight a number of the issues, pertinent issues as I see them. Firstly, we work very closely and productively with your officers right through this whole process. We entered into extensive pre-application discussion, both with highways and with planning, before we submitted. We were requested to submit a full planning application rather than outline, because then that allowed the detail to be considered as part of this submission. And I think some of those points were raised earlier, which I'll come back to. We were asked to provide more open space on the site, a play area, which we willingly did. And you can see that on the scheme, which was up earlier. We've also been asked to provide a very specific mix for the affordable housing, which we agreed that only just the other day. We were also asked to ensure that we achieved the 12-metre buffer strips around the site because of the sensitivity of the hedgerows and the trees. All of those we were very happy to offer and are before you today. And as a result of this, the scheme is now for 47 dwellings. The actual allocation is for 53. Nevertheless, your officer has confirmed that we meet all aspects of policy HT6, plus all the other relevant policies in the local plan, housing standards, private amenity space, back-to-back distances, etc. It's also important to note there are no statutory consultees who are objecting to this application. Perhaps I can just pick up the air quality report here. We were asked to update that, which we did submit and was considered by your environmental health officer, who raised no objection. And indeed, the reduction in the contribution is a direct result of the air quality improving in the area rather than getting worse. We were also asked on a regular basis to deal with highway comments, and yes, they did object to the original submission, but we worked hard with the Highway Authority to deal with their comments as the application progressed, such that they'd have no objection to the application before you today. It's important to note that the actual access itself and the bridleway works are common to those which were approved as policy HT5. And that was the other reason why the applications were delayed coming forward, to make sure that both accesses were designed and work together, because land is needed off both sides to deliver the accesses, which are before you today. In terms of the BNG, we did carry out the assessment using the correct matrix. It was done and redone quite a few times. Comments were made in the normal way, and we responded to those. And again, the relevant ecologist and the Wildlife Trust have raised no objection to the application, and we're more than happy to deliver the 10% BNG on site, which clearly is in excess of the requirements as they stand at the moment. Just to come back on the sustainability question from earlier on, we are committed to deliver those issues as set out in the committee report by condition. Manor O'Combs are very keen to ensure that all their schemes deliver sustainability to the highest level. If the actual means by delivering sustainability does change, then clearly we're happy to have those discussions, but we would want to maintain that level of sustainability throughout the entire scheme. There was also mention for lighting, and again, we appreciate the sensitivity of lighting. We have assessed the impact through our ecological reports, which didn't raise an issue, but I understand the concern of members. So we would be happy to have a condition which required further lighting details to be submitted as part of the future conditions on the site.
1 minute left.
Yes, finally, all I was going to say is that the scheme before you clearly, in my mind, is policy compliant. The application was submitted over a year ago. We've worked very hard with all officers, both here today and in other departments. And we've certainly, to my mind, addressed all of the concerns when they came forward. And that was certainly our intention, was to produce a scheme which I can sit before you today and be proud of and ask you to approve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions, points of qualification from the members for Jeff? No. Can I then ask the officer to respond to any issues raised?
Thank you. Yeah, first on my list was the air quality matter. Since it was deferred from the committee in September, the applicant has updated the air quality assessment, and because the data was maybe 5 years old, and found that the air quality has improved. This is reiterated by the environmental health officer, who confirmed that they thought that the air quality management areas are actually coming to a point where they might be able to be revoked because the air quality has improved that much. So there's been a recalculation of that mitigation financial contribution, and that's set out in this updated committee report. So no objection from the environmental health officer on that. I don't believe there's been a road safety audit that was raised, but I'm just looking at the comment from the Highway Authority, who had no objection on this application. So since the last outline application was withdrawn from 2021, I think it was, there have been a lot of discussions with them, and they had no objection to this application at all. In their comments, they say that they are satisfied that the impact on road safety and highway capacity is acceptable, subject to conditions, and that's sustainable transport contribution. Was there anything else? Was there anything you want to add?
As discussed earlier, we're and as the applicant expressed, we're happy to formulate a robust condition in respect to a sensitive lighting strategy that needs to be submitted and approved in writing prior to the implementation of the development and lighting scheme.
Thank you. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chair. As I can see, there were two main issues raised, which is the traffic asset impact and air quality, and the lighting scheme, which I think we can happily cover with a condition. As regards the air quality assessment, there's been a number of appeals recently against applications that have been refused on air quality grounds. And in most of those cases, it's been shown that air quality in general is improving with the move away from petrol engine and diesel engine vehicles to electric vehicles, even though in some places traffic volumes are increasing, air quality is improving because of those moves. So I think it would be a difficult one to use as an objection on the air quality grounds. Traffic assessment, we're back to the same one as last time, that the highways have been asked to look at it. The traffic assessments have been done. The highways see no objection. As Councillor Allen said in the last one, there is no legal reason for us to refuse it on those grounds. Therefore, Chair, with the addition of a clause on lighting, I move that we approve the recommendation.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, also with the addition that in answer to the point about the bridleway crossing, which I think the applicant's representative also mentioned, was that this was sort of dealt with the HT5 discussion, wasn't it, when we looked at the feasibility and the safety aspects of the road having to cross the bridleway. So I think we've kind of already sent a message of agreement with regard to that point, and so yeah, I'd be in favour of approving this.
Thank you. Debate. Ben Allen.
I think it's entirely the wrong place for this development. I think the traffic will not work properly. I know the area very well. I really think this is a bad idea. But again, our hands are tied legally and we have to follow the rules. We cannot see a legal reason to say no. I can't do it through my own choice because I would say no, but legally there's no reason, so I'll have to vote in favour.
Thank you. Any other contributions to the debate? Shall we go to the vote?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. If there's any members of the public who wish to leave, please do so. Item 9 is 23. Of course, got him. How could I? Item 9, 23/01198 FP 55 Harkness Court, Franklin Gardens, Hitchin. Sandra Occo to present, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. So this site is located at Harkness Court in Hitchin. The determination is referred to committee as objections have been received and the application is made by North Hertfordshire Council. The objections are all summarised within the officer report. Next slide, please. Okay, so here is the site. The primary vehicular access to the parking area of Harkness Court is located to the west of the site. Next slide, please. This is the slide showing the vehicular access, gated vehicular access to Harkness Court parking area. Next slide, please. Here we have a view of the car park. The area subject to this application is to the right-hand side of the gated bin store and to the left-hand side and within the car park where the blue car is parked. So to the rear of there, that grassed area is proposed to be paved over, and the car parking spaces moved further to the rear to accommodate access for a fire tender vehicle to park and serve the properties. Next slide, please. This is a closer view of the area subject to the application and the hard surfacing for the fire tender vehicle. As you can see, there's a tree located there, and there's also the clothes washing lines there, which will be relocated within the site. Next slide, please. So here we have the site location plan showing the outline of the red line. Next slide, please. Within this slide, we have the construction details of the hard surfacing at the bottom there, as well as the location of the hard surfacing and the bollards around the relocated car parking area. Next slide, please. This is the slide showing the purpose of the application, which is to have a fire tender vehicle within 45 metres of the furthest part of the building accessed through the front door. So you can see there, you may not be able to read it completely, but it's approximately 35 metres to the front door and then a further 10 metres. So a total amount of 45 metres to get a fire tender vehicle parked within that proximity. Next slide, please. That's the end of the presentation. Any questions are welcomed.
Councillor Tyson.
One thing I didn't, thanks Sam for that presentation. One thing I didn't quite pick up on was in my reading of this was why now?
Thank you. So the rationale for the application has been provided by email by the applicants. The purpose of the application is to satisfy a building control condition that allows a fire tender to be able to park within 45 metres of the furthest point of the property. I understand that may not answer your question as to why now. That's not a question I did or has been posed to the applicant. However, when assessing the application against the planning policies, we found no conflict with the planning policies. So the justification for it is we haven't found a conflict with the planning policies, so there's no reason to withhold planning permission.
Councillor Nolan. Oh, sorry. Just continue.
Sorry, I'm still not quite clear about how this came to be then. Has something changed in the regulations, or was there an error to begin with that has now been corrected?
Can I answer that? It's a change of use. It's a change of use which resulted in the fire brigade looking at the building again and realising that in fact they couldn't get close enough to the building according to their regulations.
What was it used as before?
Hmm?
What was the previous use?
It was a very similar use, but it's because it was, you know, it was a whole scheme that was involved. That's all I know.
It's going to remain a mystery, then, isn't it?
But without this, without having the fire brigade able to get that close to the building, we cannot use the building. Councillor Sean Nolan.
Thank you. So I know that it's been raised throughout the application around the loss of the facilities that are currently provided in that space, around the paraphernalia for both benches and for washing lines. And it's mentioned in the condition number 3 about a location having to be provided. Has any indication been given, firstly, of where that location may be, but also if there is another suitable location within that holding, within a similar distance to the properties that can hold those facilities?
Thank you, Councillor Nolan. We have no indication on file. However, I did feel it pertinent to go on site to just have a visual check as to whether there is the amount of space left available and what kind of locations I could imagine there would be potential for landscaping to mitigate and for the washing lines. And I feel there are areas left available that will be able to accommodate the compensatory equipment.
Okay. Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chair. I may be able to answer Councillor Tyson's question. It's open record. This has been discussed on a number of occasions at Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The building in question was originally built as a block of flats. It was then taken up by North Herts District Council and it was used as offices for Careline, who spent many years there before moving to this building. When it was built as a block of flats, the regulations were different. Now it's no longer used by Careline. It's been converted back to flats. The regulations have changed, and that's why they need to move those parking spaces. If I think that's in simple terms why they wanted to need to do it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Levitt. Councillor Allen.
Councillor Tyson asked why now. My question is, why us? Why is this brought to planning control when this seems to be something that should easily be able to be covered by officers?
It's just a part of our constitution where it's an application from North Hertfordshire District Council. Then when there is an objection to that from a member of the public, then it has to come to planning committee.
Any other points of clarification? Can I then go on to the registered speakers? Objectors, Ms. Susanna Castley and Mr. John Bentic. Are you ready, please?
Yes. Having reviewed the planning application and supporting documents, removing 2 existing parking bays and rebuilding them 7 metres closer to 55 Harkness Court is not an improvement as suggested in the application. To the contrary, it does not bring anything of any value to the tenants of Harkness Court. This would remove a substantial part of the already limited tenants' communal area, taking down 3 trees and a rotary close-on with no alternative facilities provided. This would also remove the safe walkway to the bin store. As we noted, there are tenants there with mobility issues who cannot, one in a wheelchair, one using a Zimmer frame. 55 Harkness Court, as stated, was an existing building constructed as part of the original development of Harkness Court, and fire engine access has always been available for this area from the existing parking area, which is within the 45 metres of the building. The relocation of these 2 parking bays brings them closer to some of the flats, presents a nuisance to some of the tenants, particularly one lady who has asthma. The original planning permission for the conversion of the wardens facilities into the flats was conditionally approved on 8th of August 2018. At the time, the original architect relied on the previous 2019 building regulations, when it was sufficient for an effective firefighting operations, that the fire brigade parties could be parked within 45 minutes of the principal entrance to the dwelling house. When the final permission was given on 19th of August 2020, Part B was amended and was enforced with the requirement that extended the access required to 45 metres to all points of the perimeter of the building. The requirements of the updated Part B were not considered in the original planning application, and as such, the latest application is made due to the apparent lack of feasibility study, the errors and omissions with the firefighting equipment in the original scheme design, and permission should not have been given in the first place. It is now absurd to expect us to move the infrastructure to accommodate the lack of due diligence and when drawing up the original scheme. If the flats were by a main road, would you expect the highways department to move the road to accommodate this? We had conversations with the Feast Parker on Monday, the 31st of July, looking at alternative proposals, such as provide a fire hydrant, provide a dry riser inlet. Additional fire engine access could be accommodated by the access road at the back of Harkness Court, via the access road to Cambridge Court, provide a gated access off Cambridge Road. Utilise a footpath and grass verge to provide a fire engine access place, provide an engineering solution as permitted in the buildings in Part B 012 of the building regulations. I would suggest that this planning application is deferred. Further investigation looked into alternatives. I know they need to get the fire engine close to it, but there are other engineering solutions permitted in building regulations. I suggest that the committee visit the site and determine it themselves, because I know there's very limited space as it is. I'll hand over to.
Okay, right. Now, John has gone over the more salient points. I just would like to tell you how the residents of Harkness Court are feeling. We were never told exactly what was going on when they changed from Careline. We thought maybe 2 flats were going up, but we now know it's 4. You've asked for 2, or we were told that there was 2 parking spaces required. Why only 2 if there was 4 flats? Is this something else that's going to come later? And our communal garden that we do pay service charge for, and we do look after, and we do use it. The rotary lines, I mean, they are used all the time, weather permitting, and they would be sorely missed. And there is nowhere else to put them within that garden area. It is a very small area. And as I say, it's the same, you know, with anything, the parking spaces. The parking spaces are all used, even though the picture on there showed only 1 car. We all have our little allocated spaces to park. We all know where everybody else is. It's more of a welfare thing as well. If there's a car doesn't turn up or it's been there for 2 or 3 days, we know what's going on and we try and find out what's going on with our neighbours. You know, as I say, we were told when this was all happening that 4 allocated spaces were going to be in St Faith's Church area car park. We didn't take that on board, but we wondered why we were told that. And if this does go ahead, those 2 parking spaces that are there are going to be under my bedroom window, which I will not be very happy about. I just don't think anyone's actually come and had a good look at it and talked to us about the whole thing. That's what we would like to do now. We would like to see somebody there who actually listens to us so we can actually tell them what we feel and see what they can come up with for us. That's what I would like.
Thank you. Any points of clarification from members? What Susanna and John have been saying? Yeah, Councillor Levitt.
Yeah, just clarify the communal garden bit. You said you pay for, is that part of your service charge, the communal garden, the mosh? It is, yeah. Because I know there's a condition here that says that details any earthworks, location of any new opposition outdoor paraphernalia, including benches and washing lines, has to be approved, but before permission is granted, it's actually conditioned. So I don't know if that helps you at all in that one. But it's interesting to know there is a service charge. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Can I invite the officer to respond to any issues raised, please?
I don't have any particular response to the issues raised.
Can we have a proposer? Councillor Allen.
It's proposed, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Levitt.
Happy to second, Chair, but I'm just thinking, could we possibly reinforce that recommendation 3, where it says prior to commencement approved in writing by the local authority? Could we add in there in consultation and in consultation with the residents?
Sam?
That they agree.
It would be sorry. It would be a unique condition. We don't often consult residents on the discharge of condition. However, if the members are so minded, I can't see a reason why we cannot legally take that option to consult neighbours in writing.
Can I go to Justin, our legal?
I mean, there is a requirement for planning conditions to be very precise and enforceable. And my concern is there, when you do not want to create debate about what is a consultation and dissatisfaction over that. I mean, and it may be worth me pointing out that a planning application is a public law issue. It doesn't override private rights. And the speakers have made their position quite understandably clear that they don't feel they were consulted, and there are issues as a consequence of this if it was granted. But those are to do with tenancy arrangements and that kind of thing. And they're not planning material considerations per se. Now, I can see what the council is suggesting, a method of trying to address that and appease them. But it seems to me that perhaps the applicant has been rather lacking in communication, which has generated your concerns. But in pure planning terms, the issues about providing taking away amenities and providing alternative means and so on are separate issues, and which are your private rights, quite separate to planning. Planning doesn't automatically override that, if that helps you at all.
Councillor Levitt, does that help?
It does, but given the fact that the applicant is the district council and there does appear to be an issue, I think I don't see any real legally. Yes, we don't need to put it in or shouldn't put it in, but in this case, being that we're a council, we're supposed to consult with our community and everything, and these concerns have been raised, I don't see any real harm in actually putting it in there, even if it's not truly enforceable. But I think it would just underline a point to the part of the council that's dealing with this, that they do need to talk to people a little bit more. That's why I'd like to add it in.
Justin and Sam, could.
Well, I'm making the point that generally the conditions need to be precise and enforceable. I'm not going to die in a ditch arguing the point that the council has made quite understandably. I mean, it's particularly, as he's quite again rightly pointed out,
it's this authority that's the applicant. So it's situations you could describe as rather disappointing. But there we are. So if the authority is imposing a condition seeking consultation with residents, then one would hope that an appropriate mechanism could be adhered to. Having said that, we're in the position we're in because somebody hasn't adhered to some common sense, for want of better expression, consultation exercise. Perhaps I'm talking out of turn, but that seems to me to be the situation we're now in. But yeah, I'm making a general observation about conditions, but I think there may be a slight vagueness can be accommodated. Yes.
Sam?
So I was just going to make a suggestion that we could perhaps add that the applicant undertakes some sort of consultation exercise and submits the results of that as a part of the condition, as opposed to us consulting on the condition itself, leaving it up to the applicant rather than us. I don't know if that helps the legal point at all, Justin.
Yeah, I think that achieves the same result as adding it in. Yeah, I think that achieves exactly the same result.
Okay. Councillor Allen?
Sam, can you confirm that for me through you, Chair? Because I'm not willing to put my name to it until I know exactly what we're saying, because as far as I'm concerned, consultations are done before a planning meeting. You don't add consultations to a condition. That's just wrong.
I understand your hesitation. What the kind of addition that I would be suggesting is that the results of communication with the residents are submitted to as part of the condition.
Can I just interrupt you?
Sorry, yes.
Because we've just been looking on the North Herts planning portal, and it's quite clear from the comments from objectors on that in fact they have been consulted, because they're referring to facts and responding to them. So they have been consulted. I mean, if you spend a couple of minutes actually looking on the planning portal, it is there. Including the speakers tonight. Councillor Allen.
I'm not willing to propose this with anything coming afterwards. I'm willing to propose it as it stands. I'm not willing to propose it with any kind of amendment, sorry.
Seconder. Councillor Everett.
No, I think what I'm trying to get at is that the issue about the relocation of the stuff that's already there is the residents are happy with what they're going to get as a replacement. That's what I'm trying to get to. So I think it does need something adding to. So
it's, if I say on the planning portal, there are responses to the suggestions from residents.
I think what I'm trying to say is I don't believe that there's been any proposal as to where they will be relocated to. There's nothing in it. There's nothing in this report that indicates that they've been given an option of relocation. It just the condition actually says must be submitted to and approved by writing the local planning authority. Actually, thinking about that again, if this authority has got any sense, and when they put those details in, they will take note of what was being said in this meeting, I would hope, the relevant department that's dealing with it. And I'm sure our planning officers when they look at the landscape details, and this will take into account what's being said at this meeting and the residents' views. So actually, I think we can cover it within there without putting that amendment in.
That work? Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
That works. So back to seconding the proposal as it stands. So we have now got a proposer, Councillor Allen, a seconder, Councillor Levitt, for the proposal as it stands. Should we go to the debate? Councillor Nolan?
Sorry, I missed this slightly before. Just wanted to confirm under the new standard that's being applied, with the distances involved, does that require the parking spaces in the extension to be empty for the fire equipment to be within range, or is it enough in the keep clear area? So it's just struck me seeing that had the diagram before. Is it just to understand exactly what the standards ask for there?
I believe the standard asks for the tender vehicle to be parked within the 45-metre distance. So it doesn't require the parking spaces to be empty for the tender to be able to be parked within that block.
Councillor Peace?
So from the comments and from the diagram that we were shown, there wasn't any evidence that the fire service had considered parking at the back off Cambridge Road. I just wondered whether that should be investigated by the fire service before this proceeds. Because there is another way to access that block. It's raised in the comments, as the gentleman behind us said.
I note that there are several comments made of alternative potential positions. However, the assessment of the application against the policies that we apply state that comes out that the development is acceptable in planning terms. We're not suggesting that it's only acceptable because a fire tender is required. There's just no planning reason to object to the proposal as it stands at the moment, and there is no requirement for a sequential test of alternative potential positions, as the proposal that's been put forward complies with the policies that we have to apply to the development proposal.
That's okay.
It seems crazy that if somebody hasn't considered that, then
we don't know the how.
We don't know
at this point. We don't know. Any more comments in the debate? Anybody's not spoken. Right. Shall we go to the vote?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 10, TPO 002.208 4 Coat House Drive, Hitchin. Thomas, how to present, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. I have no updates to give other than subject or subsequent to neighbour comments. I've made the Maidencroft report viewable as part of the committee pack. And yeah, that recommended the retention of the tree. Next slide, please. So this is the location plan with T1 at the centre being the common beach that's part of this application. Just for clarity, number 4 is that dwelling to the south of it with the boundary running kind of north-west. In fact, the boundary runs underneath the tree towards the northeast, so it's like an L-shaped garden that number 4 has, but that was just queried by a neighbour. Just thought I'd clarify that. Next slide, please. And there is the beech tree with the red square surrounding it. As I say, it is in within the back garden of number 4. It's outside of the conservation area, so it's not afforded any protection this way. But when it comes to the surrounding addresses, it's number 2 to the southeast, number 2A London Road to the immediate east, and number 2 London Road to the north, with the roundabout, which I'm sure all of us know about, to the north. So again, a neighbour queried the reasoning for the TPO coming at this time. So basically what happened was the residents at number 4 asked the council to assess, sorry, does it sound okay? Asked the council to assess the beech tree as a possible candidate for a TPO, which occurred. So first of all, it was up to myself to conduct a solo visit, which was external, which was followed by a visit by the council's trees officer, which was done at the base of the tree within the garden, number 4, and was a tempo assessment, which concluded that the tree is probably what it is worth protecting. Therefore, it initiated the procedure to protect it, which included consultation with neighbouring occupiers, following objections, with one mentioning the possible safety of the tree and requesting that a report be made. Maidencroft were enlisted for a survey from both the ground and within the crown, so they climbed to the crown to make observations of, say, the structural soundness, as well as to make to value the tree as whether it's worth retaining. Basically, the ground visit with the trees officer occurred in May, with Maidencroft visiting this September just gone. Next slide, please. So this is taken back in May, which is why the tree's in full leaf. Looking across the driveways of number 2 and 2A London Road as viewed from the roundabout and the path running along the roundabout. Sorry. Next slide, please. And then this is further round. I believe that's 2A. So that tree poking up at the centre is the beech tree. Next slide, please. This is taken from the ground within the garden of number 4, looking up within the crown, and was taken during my visits with the trees officer. Next slide, please. And then this is just a picture showing the trunk, and I believe it's where various stems of the tree meet with the main dwelling house, number 4 on the right, and the roof of number 2 Coach Drive, just poking up behind the fence at the centre of the picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Any questions of Thomas? Councillor Levitt?
Just a quickie one. The tree preservation order recommends some phased management of the tree and everything. I assume that the owner of the property that tree stands within is responsible for the costs of doing such work, and that's who the enforcement would lie with, is it?
I can't say for certain legally, but I believe they would be, as it's their tree. And also when it comes to the time that they need to do that phased management that Maidencroft recommend, given that it's potentially justifiable and reasonable, I don't see why the council would object to those works.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do we have a proposer? Councillor Nolan?
I'm happy to propose confirmation of the TPO.
I second.
Yeah, that motion has been carried.
I now close the meeting at 21:58. The next meeting, PCC, is on the 26th of October. Thank you very much.